We are back with you again on another Johnny Torch program, number 232. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, something I've been wanting to do for a long time, for a number of years, in fact. For those of you who don't know, yours truly is a huge Phil Collins Genesis era fan. And for a long time, I said I'm going to do a ranking of the Phil Collins solo albums or ranking of the Genesis Phil Collins albums. And being the fuss budget I am, I kind of want to produce it well and get down to the nitty gritty of each and every song. And I come to find out, have wasted a lot of years not doing it, just waiting for the proper moment or whatever. Here we are at Phil Collins' 70th birthday. Hard to believe, coming up soon, in a couple of days, will be Phil's 70th birthday. Kind of having a tough time lately in the news and with recent health problems. Unfortunately, he can't play the drums anymore. His son is taking over for that, which is good. At least it's all in the family. There's a tentative reunion with Genesis finally in the works for another stadium tour, if possible. We'll see how that goes. So I figure there's no time like the present. So we're going to do 2 shows this week. The first being the Phil Collins solo albums, ranking and reviewing. This will probably take at least an hour, knowing how verbose I am, especially about a subject near and dear to me, such as Phil Collins' music. I just became a fan very young, early on. Phil's music just meant the most to me out of all artists that were out there at the time when I was a kid in the late 80s, early 90s. And I'm just a dedicated fan, and you'll see that in my work and my books. You'll probably find a lot of references and drops to Phil Collins songs and Genesis songs of that era. So we're going to go through them all. I'm going to rank. Let's see. First off, we'll talk about the criteria here. We are going to do the albums in the Take a Look at Me Now collection. We're not going to do the hits albums, the love songs compilations. All that stuff is not going to be involved in this. We are not doing the Hot Night in Paris album for the Phil Collins Big Band, because that's basically just the greatest hits of him doing it in big band style, which I love. And I did a review of the Blu-ray that came out of that show. So if you want to hear my thoughts on that, I'll see if I can put a link in the description. But check that out, because I did a full video on that, on the DVD version of that album, so that's taken care of. There's a B-Sides and Rarities album that I don't have because it's a digital album. I don't have that, and I'm not counting that. So we're just going by the studio albums. Let's see, there are 8 studio albums in the collection for the Take a Look at Me Now. We'll talk briefly about the B-Sides that are included on those albums and maybe some of the live tracks, but we're just going to go in my order of preference. We're going to start with the least and go to the best. Of course, your version of events will probably be quite different from mine, but these are my preferred albums in the order that I like them, so cut me a little slack if you don't like it. If you don't like it, make your own list. That's kind of the way I see it. But there's not really a bad Phil Collins album, we'll put it that way. But starting with the least, let's talk about the least. Let's see. Number 8 on my list of Phil Collins solo albums ranked and reviewed. Number 8 is going to be Both Sides. Both Sides. I remember getting this album when I was a kid. I think it was the first Phil Collins album I got out the day it was released. And I was kind of head-scratching what I was hearing. This was a very introspective album by Phil. I know it has its fans, as a matter of fact. A lot of people love the sort of introspective, dark tunes of Phil's. Phil played all the instruments on this album as well, so the songs kind of have a sameness sound to them, to me anyway. And they're there's a lot of mid-tempo ones. There's a lot of slow ones. There's a lot of ones that are like love songs and unrequited love and stuff. And of course, someone that I don't remember how old I was when this came out, 11, 12, something like that. That kind of wasn't what I wanted to hear at the time. As years have gone by, I've appreciated a lot more of the songs than I did at the time. I remember at the time it didn't get a whole lot of replay from me. And to be honest, I think this is probably the only one you'll find in the bargain bin if you go to the local, Best Buy or whatever. You'll probably find this one for like $5 or something, and it will be an easy purchase. So let's take a look at the track listings, and I'll see, we'll try to briefly talk about all the songs on the albums. The title track, Both Sides of the Story, I remember seeing that video when it came out. Again, this was a great opener for the album. I think it's probably the best up-tempo song on the album. And again, it feels like he's kind of picking up where he left off on But Seriously. It's sort of a song about, the social problems that were prevalent to everyone. There's talking about infidelity and homelessness. Again, this kind of felt like it was a leftover from But Seriously, which kind of makes it a strong opener. Can't Turn Back the Years, another great song. I remember that song got some airplay on the R&B stations at the time. Again, that's one of the stronger, mid-tempo songs, I guess they call it. Every Day, that is probably my favorite slow song on the album. They had a video for this one. Again, a lot, like I said, a lot of kind of the same flavor for a lot of these songs. But Every Day, I thought, had some character that you could have found it on maybe a But Seriously or, that kind of 90s era Phil Collins album. I've Forgotten Everything. He kind of tweaked this one in the Love Songs compilation, and I think that's probably the best version of that song. It's very slow, very plodding. It's a tribute to Hoagie Carmichael's I Get Along Without You Very Well, which is honestly a better song. But, Phil is trying to emulate the masters here, and I appreciate that. We're Sons of Our Fathers, again, this is kind of it's a jaunty kind of number. It's got that interesting intro. I appreciate it. It's, again, it's kind of, what's the word? Kind of maudlin. You know what I mean? It's kind of a downer when you think about the words. It's very true, though, unfortunately, in life, talking about how the next generation, or sort of the current generation, doesn't really understand the next generation. No matter how hip or with it you think you are, the next generation is going to completely obliterate you. They're going to blow your mind. So again, I don't know. Can't Find My Way. I really like this song. This is, again, one of the strongest songs on the album. This is sort of the closest Phil's come to sort of a religious-sounding song. And, again, this is a album where, I think the only album where Phil had liner notes, where he tried to talk within, like, 2 sentences about what each song was about. And the liner notes for this song, I remember he said, it's about to just do the right thing, always do the right thing. But it does sound to me to be sort of religious in tone, that he's, trying to find a meaning to life from a higher power. And that appeals to me, of course, with my religious background. Next, we have Survivors. And this, to me, is the problem, I think, with this album. Now, this would have been a great single, I think. This would probably have been the biggest single of the album, but it sounds too much like a demo. And I think that's also something Phil did with these songs on this album. He kind of tried to play them as demos, putting them on the album without too much working. Because, again, in the liner notes, he kind of talks about how he's got an image of being a overly polished professional and polishing a song until it's, completely radio friendly or whatever. I think this song could have used a little bit more of that. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite have as much polish as it should. I think a similar fate comes to the next song, We Fly So Close. Again, this is a song that should have rivaled In the Air Tonight, but it kind of musically meanders. And again, it's sort of that kind of a middle-aged song also as well, where it's a downer, where you're kind of hearing Phil talk about how the past is gone and you kind of blew it, and you never know really when you're going to blow it, and you got to make sure you don't blow it when you do. Something to that effect. And again, I like what he was going for here. A very rare, I suppose, use of like an acoustic guitar as well. But again, it just I kind of feel like it doesn't quite reach the level it could have. There's a place for us, probably my second favorite song on the album. I think after Every Day, it's the most effective slow song, mid-tempo song. It sort of evokes, I guess it's supposed to evoke sort of Stephen Sondheim. I know he sang, and in the Love Songs compilation, he has Somewhere, as he recorded it and added it to that compilation. And it seems to evoke that kind of, there's a place for us, and somewhere we'll be accepted, and the world will be our oyster, and so forth. It's a very good. It kind of changes, dare I say, Tony Banks-ish. It kind of changes its journey somewhere during that song. But again, I think it's pretty creative. I really enjoy it. We Wait and We Wonder. This is also a great song. I think this one probably got the most play when I was a kid. I like this one quite a lot. It introduced me, at least, to the bagpipes. Phil does a synthesized sound of the bagpipes. He would go on to learn how to play the bagpipes later. But a great sounding song, and of course, the subject, of course, being terrorism, which is something that only became more relevant as the years went by. This album came out in what? Yeah, see, this is the remaster, so I don't have the original. I'm thinking probably 93, if I remember correctly. This album came out. So, yeah, only got more relevant in the years to come. Please Come Out Tonight. Again, another mid-tempo song, kind of forgettable. It's, it says all the right things, I suppose, but it kind of fillerish. Let's see, the extra songs here, the B-sides, Take Me With You. Again, kind of par for the course for this album, sort of a plodding mid-tempo song. Let's see. I guess that's the only, yeah, because I know that Don't Call Me Ashley was a B-side. I remember having that when I was a kid, and it's an instrumental, and it's quite good. I don't know why he didn't add it to this compilation, but then again, reviewing these as compilations with bonus material, Phil didn't really do quite as much as he should, bring bonus material to these things. I've Been Trying is included, which, again, that got a lot of play on the R&B stations when I was a kid. I liked it a lot. It was a tribute album to Curtis Mayfield, of course, the great Curtis Mayfield. And he does a great job with that song. You could see it being on this album. And, of course, the demo for Hero, which he gave to David Crosby. And that was his sort of first take at that. Again, a great album. I would say it's probably more for the diehard Phil Collins fan. If you're new to Phil's catalog, this is probably not the first album you want to go to. You'll want to go to, the Face Value, but Seriously, No Jacket Required, and then you'll probably come to this one maybe third or fourth, and you'll probably be ready for it. So that is number 8 on the album countdown here. We're going to go to number 7. Hope I'm numbering these correctly. All right, number 7, we're going to the Going Back album. Now, again, this is, I kind of debated whether I wanted to put this on the countdown at all as a ranker, because it's not any solo material. This is just a cover album, but a cover album should count, I suppose. And this is the Motown album that Phil put together, covering all his favorite Motown songs from when he was a kid. And I think some of them are not Motown, but this is the essential version. Now, to be honest with you, I quite prefer the extended version. I don't know really what it's called, but that is my preferred version of it because there's a lot more songs. He streamlines the songs on the essential version. The only thing the essential version has, I believe, is Too Many Fish in the Sea. That's the only thing that was added to the essential going back. And then, of course, you get some of the greatest hits of the concert, because there is, of course, a concert film of his performances of this. But so I'm going to go by the extended version. You know, of course, these are all hits. These are all great because they're all the Motown classics. Ain't Too Proud to Beg, of course, is a favorite. Take Me in Your Arms, I think. That's kind of a lesser known song. I wasn't aware of that one when I heard this one. I love Phil's version of it. Blame It on the Sun by Stevie Wonder. Great version. Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Standing in the Shadows of Love. I love me some Four Tops. I'm a big Four Tops fan with the great Levi Stubbs. Of course, you can't, nobody could top Levi Stubbs with that great voice of his. But of course, Phil's got one of the greatest voices in music today. So he holds his own with these. You Really Got a Hold on Me. Jimmy Mack, I think he does a pretty good twist to that one. I don't remember who does Jimmy Mack. Was that the Ronettes? I don't think so. But yeah, he does a pretty good job at that. Something About You, a big favorite of mine. Love Is Here and Now You're Gone. There's something about the Supremes that Phil, I don't know what it is. He just seems to be able to translate a girl group song from the 60s and make it, his own. Loving You Is Sweeter Than Ever, another big favorite. Going to a Go-Go. Dancing in the Street. And going back, of course, that song was covered also by Freddie Mercury. I think it was originally a Dusty Springfield song. So again, this is probably not essential listening if you're a Phil Collins fan wanting to hear his own catalog. But again, this is, of course, great material that he's working with here. And he went so far as to actually get some of the original band members, the Motown session musicians, the Funk Brothers, and what's his name here? The Lamont Dozier, who co-wrote Two Hearts with him. Of course, also a big Motown writer back then. So, he really tried to get everything to feel and sound about as close to Motown as possible. So he's really stepping into the shoes of the original songs. He's not trying to twist them and fool around and make them something that they weren't. Something, again, I prize a lot. So again, great album. I think, again, if you like that Motown sound, you should very well check it out with Phil Collins. All right, so let's see. Number seven. This was a tough one for me because from here on, they're all pretty close. They're all very close. I'm going to put for 7 Testify. Testify is Phil's, at least we'll call it the last studio album now. The Going Back album, unfortunately, gosh, that's like 10 years old now. And it was the last album Phil did. And then, of course, he had health issues and so on and so forth. But you go back like 20 years now for the last studio album Phil put out, and that was Testify. And I was thrilled with this album. I was really, really pleased with it. I struggled with not putting it higher on the list. I do think that again, it kind of has the same issues I have with Both Sides. The difference is, though, is these songs are much more produced. They sound a lot more unique. The first track, Wake Up Call, has that self-same synthesized sound that Phil was doing on Both Sides. And it was an immediate red flag when I heard it. I was like, oh no, is he doing this like totally in the computer synthesized sound again? But no, Wake Up Call is actually a really great song. It's a really great opener for this album. And the album is sort of a statement by Phil. And I think one of the reasons it appeals to me is it's not like a downer like Both Sides. And it's not like trying to be too festive like Dance Into the Light. This one is smashed right in the middle. And you have the sensitive and, mid-tempo, melodic sounding songs. And you also have some of the more peppier tunes. You can tell he's actually trying for a couple of hits here, unlike on both sides. And a lot of criticism, I think, is the problem that Phil must have took to heart at some point, with a lot of people saying, well, he's a commercial juggernaut, and a lot of people place the blame of the commercial success on Genesis on him. And of course, that to me, I've never understood, because being a commercial success means that you're appealing to a lot of people. But again, Phil Collins and Genesis fans are, in some cases, misguided in their attempts there. But like I said, this, as an opposite of both sides, is a happy Phil album. And you can tell he's happy with his life at this point. A lot of the songs are, even the slower ones are more up-tempo. You still get some of the socially conscious songs, which I could kind of do without, but we'll get to that when we get to But Seriously. Number 2 track, Come With Me. Again, a beautiful song, a lullaby. And again, this is sort of Phil enjoying his kids. It's just a nice, happy sounding song. Number 3 is Testify. Again, I really like what he's done with this song. The title track, you have like sort of this chorus behind him, and it's got that building to a crescendo. And that's something Phil doesn't do quite often enough, but he does do it well. It's sort of that, Jim Steinman did it a lot with a lot of his songs, and Meatloaf has a bunch of them, and, Air Supply, Bonnie Tyler, that type of stuff. Phil's got a couple, this one, and probably I Wish It Would Rain Down are the first to come to mind. I really love the performance, the way he puts it over. Don't Get Me Started is next. Again, it's sort of a political, topical song. It's probably the weakest on the album to me. Swing Low, a very interesting song. It's sort of about child delivery, childbirth. That's kind of an unusual topic for a song, but again, it works. It's got sort of that kind of jazz clarinet in the back, or cornet, whatever it is. The great Harry Kim, of course, probably playing it. And he references In the Air Tonight, which again is a nice little nod. Let's see, It's Not Too Late. He did this in the live shows. It's kind of a passable track for me, but I like the sentiment, of course, because, it's never too late. No matter how old you are, you can still accomplish whatever you want in life. And, of course, I appreciate that sentiment. This Love, This Heart, of course, this is like the most, sentimental love song. And, it works. It's up there. I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know if I really put it up there with some of his greatest love songs, but again, it's a really good, it harmonizes well. Another song where he kind of builds into sort of like a crescendo. I like the guitar work on the song. It's really good. Driving Me Crazy. This is like a really good, like, late in the day up-tempo song for Phil. This is, he's approached this kind of material before, about like slightly mentally off characters. You'll hear some of them in the other songs that we've got to do here. But again, he sort of returns to his roots of that kind of song, and it works. I really like it. It's sort of his kind of, it's his take on Every Breath You Take, The Police. And it doesn't sound anything like that, but that's apparently like what he was going for. And like I said, I think it's a good up-tempo song for, in that kind of sort of subgenre of music. Least You Can Do, again, this is the version that Phil likes. I like the version that he has on the Love Songs album better. It adds like another verse, and it kind of, again, builds up a little bit stronger. But again, another great song. If you're looking for another heart wrencher, that's a great one. Can't Stop Loving You, another one of my favorites. This song is one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, that's a great song. Next, we have Through My Eyes. Again, we're not doing the Disney soundtracks, but again, this was around the time he wrote Look Through My Eyes for Brother Bear, and it's like this is like his own personal take on that song. and You Touch My Heart, which again is another sort of lullaby. So again, this is a very strong album. I really love this album. This was something that I played over and over again when it first came out. I wish Phil would come back and do some more albums like this, because if this is all he's got left, this is still great Phil Collins material. Additional Testimony is the bonus album, and to be honest with you, most of the bonus material in some of these other albums in the Take a Look at Me Now collection, I really didn't like. I didn't really care for it, and I could see why they were left off the album. I actually think pretty much all the songs here could have made the album, or actually there's so many of them, he could have just saved them for another album and put together 2 or 3 more tracks and made another album. High Flying Angel, you know, it's sort of like a high-minded concept. You know, it's a good song. I like it. Crystal Clear, this is the only one that it didn't make a real huge impression on me. Hey Now Sunshine is kind of a female version of Sussudio. It doesn't sound anything like Sussudio, but again, it's going back to that unrequited love roots, and I really dug it. I thought that was a real great song. TV Story, again, this is another great song. It's got some good music to it, and this was written, of course, back in 2002, where it's talking about couch potatoes, where really you could, you know, substitute that kind of imagery for personal computers and phones and stuff like that, where it's about a family that basically doesn't connect until they're offered the chance to win a lot of money if they went without a television for a couple of weeks or something, as the story goes. And the music's great. It kind of harkens back, I think, a little bit to the Dance Into the Light album, which I liked musically. It sounds like he was kind of, you know, treading on some maybe Beatle-esque sounds in that song. There's the demo, It's Only Loving, which I think probably without any polish, he could have put that song on an album. It's a great song. And, you know, maybe he would have wanted to tweak it a little bit, but it really sounds like a completed song, and I enjoyed it a lot. We get the demo for Tearing and Breaking, which again was a song I don't know, really didn't do anything for me on the Love Songs album. And we also get the True Colors live version, which they do that really, really great when he does that live with his backup singers, and it kind of turns into a chorus. It's very acoustic. The produced version, of course, on the Hits album. So again, this is a great album. I think, you know, it's only as low because there are quite a number of great albums in his collection, but that's a great album, a solid album, and it is a favorite. All right, next up, people are probably going to think I'm crazy for placing this one a little bit lower, but seriously. Now, But Seriously, to me, is an album of 2 halves. Back in the day when we had a half, you know, a side each, side A was killer, and then side B was like filler. To me, anyway. That's the way I felt about it. I always played the first side when I was a kid, with some exceptions. I mean, there are a couple of songs on side A that really weren't that great, and we'll get to that in a second. But the second side, there was like 1 or 2 I'd play, and I was like, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So the problem here with this is, if I were to rate side A, this is probably my second favorite album. But I'm also trying to rank these albums on how much great material is on it. And I think, honestly, it's about 50-50. I think you got some of Phil's best songs that he's ever done on side A. And side B is, I don't want to say largely forgettable, but again, there's only a handful of songs on the second side that probably bear a lot of repetition. All right, so let's get into it. The first song, Hanging Long Enough, a great song, a killer opening track. Love that song. The horn fanfare and the big guitar solo at the end. You know, the sort of him, Jimi Hendrix singing on the guitar. And of course, it had a great video as well that went with it, with him on the Titanic as it was going down. Great song. Great song. That's Just the Way It Is. again, very passable. I barely ever listen to that one. And, it's not a bad song, but again, for a mid-tempo song, again, it's talking about terrorism and religious warfare and so on and so forth. It's not really a subject that's interesting. And that's kind of the story of But Seriously. Every other song is Phil doing sort of the modern protest song. He's complaining about something, if I put it that way. And most of those songs to me were passable as a kid, and even now, I suppose. Number 3, Do You Remember? Oh, this is another of his greatest love songs. Never get tired of this song. It's just a beautiful song. And hearing him do it live, because again, we're not doing like the live album as part of this, but him doing it live is just as great as hearing him do it on record. It's just a great song, captivating. Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. I think this is probably his second biggest hit. I think this was probably one of the biggest hits of his career. And again, it's just like Sussudio Part 2. You couldn't have asked for a better hit record being written. So as a hit record, again, this is like tops. This is tops of his career. So great song. Obviously great song there. Colors, again, this is a song, musically, it sounds pretty good. It's talking about the plight of South Africa back in, the late 80s. Again, I don't really want to get into it and everything, but, it's kind of dated. I guess it's really passable. I really don't listen to it very often. Maybe once a year. It's got some good drum rhythms and stuff. But again, it's passable. I Wish It Would Rain Down, again, another one of his greatest songs, another great masterpiece. Eric Clapton on guitar. This is one of, I think, only 2 times that he appeared on an album with him. Eric appeared with Phil. Phil, of course, produced, I think he produced, what was it, August? The Eric Clapton album. Phil produced a lot of great entertainers. Had a great video that went with it. Again, we should do a ranking of the videos, because that would be something I'd enjoy as well. Another Day in Paradise, again, big hit, record of the year. Great sounding song. This would be the beginning of side 2. Again, it's kind of played out now. I kind of don't listen to it too much anymore, because at the time it was when it first came out, it was pretty trendy. It was the plight of the homeless and so on and so forth. But going back and listening to it now, it's like, I don't know. I don't really need to hear about that right now. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. When some of the songs get too preachy, though, I just tune out and don't really want to listen to them again. So again, I don't know. It's a great song, but again, not too much replayability for me. Heat on the Street, probably the best up-tempo song on side B. It's very catchy, very fast-paced. Again, this is just basically talking about how the government looks down on the people who are just trying to scratch by every day, trying to make a living. And, this one works. I think this one really works if you want to talk about the social political songs that he's got on this album. This one works, and I think everybody can identify with it. And it doesn't really sound particularly preachy or cloyingly sentimental. It's basically just saying you got to get out there and make your voice heard. Reminds me a lot, I think it's the spiritual successor of It's Gonna Get Better from Genesis' self-titled album, which again is another song I like a lot. All of My Life, this is a good song. Again, I don't know, it's kind of overlooked. I would say this is sort of like a lost classic. This is one that probably deserves a replay more than I give it. It's sort of a Set 'em Up Joe song. Again, shades of Say It's All Right Joe, maybe, from Genesis. It's got that sort of, Love on the Rocks type thing. But he's talking about basically how, if you don't nurture your relationships, they're going to go south in a hurry sometimes. And talking about his parents as well. It's a good song. It's a good song. Very good musically. Again, it builds up quite a bit. I like it a lot. And I think it's underrated. Saturday Night and Sunday Morning is just a brief little ditty that's sort of the What Gorilla of the album. It's a very good instrumental piece. I think it's very catchy. I would have liked if he could have made something perhaps a little bit more, a little bit of a longer production with it. It would have probably been nice. But again, for what it is, it's great. Father to Son, a very beautiful melody. And again, it's another one that I probably overlook or pass by on the replay. But a very sentimental song about being a father to a son. And the final song, Find a Way to My Heart. Again, this is an overlooked song, I think, as well. It's got the strange opening and closing crescendo of the guitar whining, which I think kind of put me off to it maybe a little bit, which is why I never used to play it as much as a kid. But I think once you get past that, it's actually a really good up-tempo song. And, it talks about sort of the emotions of not wanting to get hurt again. And you have to kind of just ease your way into a relationship and so on and so forth, which again is very meaningful. I like it a lot. So again, this is a great album. Maybe I ranked it a little too low, but I think it's got peaks and valleys. Let's put it this way. There's songs that I don't listen to at all. There's songs that I always listen to, and there's songs that I'll play it and I'll be like, wow, I haven't heard that in a while. That's really good, and I can't believe I haven't heard that one in a couple of years, So again, it's a great album. It's a lot of variety to it, I suppose. Taking a look at some of the B-sides here. That's How I Feel is a good song. You've Been in Love That Little Bit Too Long. Again, also a good song. I could have seen either of these being on the album. And to be honest with you, I'd have preferred if he'd have put those on the album. It would have been a stronger album. I think you take out Just the Way It Is and maybe Colors, and you probably put those two on. I think you probably got a much better album, a much stronger album. I think, of course, the reason, honestly, why those two songs are not on the album is because they're both talking about infidelity. And two songs about infidelity on one album, particularly at the time in his life where he was having marital problems and stuff, it probably was not going to be a good look to put those two songs on the album. But independent of the album, they're still great songs. And, I would love them to be on the album. They would probably, like I said, bring up the share of the album considerably in my estimation. All right, so we're on number 4 now. Number 4 in the ranking, the Phil Collins solo albums. Here is where I shall place. Let's see. Oops. See, I didn't get this one ready, so it's going to take a split second for me to bring it up. All right. I'm going to put Hello, I Must Be Going as number 4. Now, again, this is tough. This was tough for me to decide how to rank these. Hello, I Must Be Going, of course, the joke is Phil is a big Groucho Marx and Marx Brothers fan. Of course, that's the song Captain Spaulding sings. Groucho sings as Captain Spaulding in Animal Crackers. So that's the jokey title of the song. Again, it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of how this is a very sort of ballad-heavy album. And thinking about it now, I think I should have placed this one even higher. I think this one and Face Value to me is interchangeable because Face Value, sort of like what we were talking about with But Seriously, Face Value has the better songs. I think Hello, I Must Be Going is a more consistent album. It's got maybe not some of the biggest hits, but it is consistently a strong album. All the songs are great. There is not a, In the Air Tonight or a Sussudio, but you do have every song being better than, say, some of the weaker tracks on But Seriously. All right, so the first one, I Don't Care Anymore. The first track, a stunner. This is a stunner. This is sort of his, he didn't really stick with this formula of trying to open the album with a drum-heavy song. But you could tell he's trying to evoke the success of In the Air Tonight with another strong drum-heavy track. And this song is phenomenal. Again, it builds up all the pain and anguish that Phil was going through at the time. Of course, that's mostly what is found on Face Value, but this one obviously feels like some kind of a holdover from that. And again, just a great song, a great track, a lot of the passion that Phil brings to it. Again, just unbelievable. Second track, I Cannot Believe It's True. Again, this is a great up-tempo track. I mean, again, there's nothing really special about it, but I put this one on, brings a smile to my face. It's just a nice, happy ditty. And again, nothing particularly special about it, but, you know, it's just a great up-tempo track. I mean, it's consistently good, this album, all the way through. Like China, again, we're in territory there of like Sussudio territory, Young Love and all that. Again, great guitar riff, the great Daryl Sturma. His presence is felt all the time on some of these great guitar solos and guitar riffs. Great guitar solo there in Like China. And again, burgeoning romance. It's a great topic for any kind of song. And Phil makes the most of it there. Great song. Again, we get into the weird sort of strange, creepy stalker territory with this next song, Do You Know, Do You Care? And we get the demo for this track as well with the song called Oddball, which is pretty cool. This is what the song is about. Again, it's a very strange song, and Phil dips into this sort of weird area throughout his career. We were just talking about before, Driving Me Crazy, this kind of weird stalker type thing. You know, it's got a little bit of raunch. It's got sort of that dark, atmospheric tonight, mama type stuff going on in the music. And the chorus, Do You Know, Do You Care? It's, you know, it evokes a pretty strong reaction. So it's a cool song. Next, of course, the Supremes, You Can't Hurry Love. That's the classic. Again, it was a smart move for Phil to cover, I think, an old song because everybody was doing it at the time. The 80s, there was always covers, and that really got your radio play because, you know, I think, you know, the past generation was familiar with that stuff from when they were kids. They, you know, they knew Motown. You had like the Rolling Stones and everybody taking cover songs from Motown and so forth because it was an inspiration to that generation as well. They grew up with it. And this was a great choice. You Can't Hurry Love. Again, Phil takes sort of like a feminine song and really makes it his own. And it works. It just works unbelievably well. It Don't Matter to Me, again, another up-tempo track that is, again, just consistently good, just like I Cannot Believe It's True. It's probably not a, you know, top 10 on anybody's list, but again, once it comes on, when I'm playing the album, I dare not hit that skip button. It's just fast-paced, up-tempo, great sound, and of course, Phil was using the Phoenix horns at this point. He brought them in, of course, with Face Value, but he had become an old hand now at working with the Phoenix horns, which was essentially the Earth, Wind, and Fire horn section. And again, it's just a fantastic song. Let's see. Through These Walls, again, this is this is Phil twice in one album doing sort of the ode to perverts. And you'll find he has this kind of subgenre in his songs where he'll sort of do the perv song, and this is one of them, about sort of a creepy guy that, you know, holds the glass up to the door in the hotel or whatever, and you know, it's a little unsettling. A great sounding song. You know, it uses the riff of In the Air Tonight, the ba-dum 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 bum. He kind of found a way to recycle that. Again, kind of imaginative. He did this one live. He did a video for it. So he did have some hopes for this song. But again, I can't see too many people listing it as one of their favorites. But again, you know, it's a different kind of color to the catalog. This is one of my all-time favorites of the Phil love song genre. Don't Let Him Steal Your Heart Away. Just a beautiful sounding song. I love that song. One of his most meaningful. You know, he's fearing losing his loved one. And again, it's emotionally resonant, and it's got great music. It's just, it's just one of my favorite of the love songs. If we ever do a love song ranking, that would be high on it. I could tell you that much. The West Side, an instrumental. Again, Phil was really kicking it with those instrumentals. This was a great one. You got the great Don Myrick playing saxophone there. Unfortunately, his life ended young, relatively young, in a drug bust gone wrong. But what he left us in the Phil Collins music catalog cannot be overstated. The West Side, One More Night, just so many great songs. And finally, Why Can't It Wait Till Morning? Again, another great love song. A lot stronger love songs. I think this is a very posh love song album, but it's a lot stronger. The songs are a lot stronger than what is found on Both Sides, in my opinion. Both Sides has a couple good ones. I think with Hello, I Must Be Going, they're all good ones. Why Can't It Wait Till Morning? Again, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just a nice, soft, breezy little love song. And, it's quite enjoyable. Let's see. There's a couple of concert songs, covers that Phil does here in the extras. Let's see. People Get Ready, which I believe, and again, I don't throw rocks if I get this wrong, I believe it's a Marvin Gaye song. People Get Ready. It's a very sort of religious sounding song, very meaningful. And It's All Right, which, if you've seen the No Ticket Required concert for No Jacket Required, that is another Motown staple that Phil does live and does exceptionally well live. So a couple of great extras there, and you get the live versions of those songs. So again, very, very good album. I enjoyed this one a lot. And like I said, all killer, no filler. It's kind of, I would say, to be honest with you, it's the most consistent Phil Collins album in his repertoire. I don't think there's legitimately a bad song on it, but again, the songs don't really hit the heights of But Seriously, No Jacket Required, Face Value. And so we move on. Let's see. All right, next up, I am going to place Face Value. Face Value, yeah. Again, it's really difficult to place these where I want them. I don't know. Because they're all great. This is Phil's solo debut. Of course, this album, what can you say about this album? This album just put Phil on the map. It's a great album from beginning to end. A couple songs here I think are very skippable, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We start off with In the Air Tonight, probably Phil's signature song. I know he's got a couple, Against All Odds, Studio. Those are some of his signature songs, but I think In the Air Tonight will always go down as Phil Collins' signature song. Just that great drum fill, the atmosphere, the video, of course, also put together a unique feel and emotion through it. And more urban myths have probably been created from this one song than any other song in history. If I knew you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. It's just, you can take the song, and I know Miami Vice has, and I know there's probably a half a dozen other things that have probably used the song, and it evokes such a mysterious feel, and it's the ultimate revenge song. It's about being done wrong, and you just want to be able to see the person who done it get what's coming to them. And they might not even know that they wronged you, and you're still going to give them what they deserve. It's just like, I could see this like as the Punisher's theme song or something. It's just a great song, and it's been covered by everybody and their brother because it stands the test of time. This Must Be Love. That's the second one, a very different feeling song. This is a very, a slow love song, mid-tempo song. It works. again, it's the feelings of the early stages of love, and it's a very nice, sort of breezy song. Again, I don't know if it's as strong as some of the love songs on Hello, I Must Be Going, but again, a very good mid-tempo song. Behind the Lines, this is Phil covering the Genesis classic from Duke, of course. Behind the Lines, he pushed for the Phoenix Horns for a horn section on that song back when they were doing Duke, and of course Tony Banks was hesitant, and they didn't end up doing it because he felt very strongly that it should only be Genesis members on a Genesis album, and that's understandable. But eventually he backed down on that when Abacab came out, and Phil convinced him to use the Phoenix Horns on a couple of songs. We'll talk about that when we do the Genesis albums, but at this point, Phil was like, all right, they're not going to let me do it on the Genesis album proper. I'm going to do my version on my solo album. And the interesting thing is, he changes some of the words, makes it a bit jauntier, makes it a bit more like a, it's a faster song, it's a faster track than it was originally done. It's interesting to see what Phil made of it from what originally it was. The Roof is Leaking, probably my least favorite song on the album. I pass it probably 99% of the time. It's Phil doing bluegrass. Honestly, I applaud him for trying to stretch his creativity. But I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. It's a very... I don't know, maybe it's just I'm not a fan of bluegrass. And of course, Eric Clapton is this other performance on a Phil solo album where he's playing banjo, I believe. Some version of banjo. I'm not too up with my banjo credentials, but again, it just sounds like Phil and a banjo and not much else. I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me, so it's very skippable. Hand in Hand, oh, excuse me, I skipped one. Droned. Droned is next, and again, this is sort of a... Droned is a very high concept type thing. I remember when I first got this album, obviously I was a fan of Phil, and I believe this was the first album I got of Phil after I heard him on the radio and became a fan as a kid. I didn't rush out and get No Jacket Required or whatever, because I'm like, I know all those songs. I don't know any of the songs on this album except In the Air Tonight. I want to see what Phil's doing. And when I played it, I remember this was another situation like with me with Both Sides where it was a head scratcher, and I was like, okay, let me see. Phil is doing bluegrass. He's doing some kind of high concept fusion with Ravi Shankar doing some kind of scat singing. I was like, I didn't know what to make of this album, honestly. And it was lower on my list for the longest time. But again, like Droned, I don't always listen to it, but when I do kind of marvel at the musicianship, I guess, so to speak, of it. And, it's just an interesting song. I don't know. Again, it's got a lot of variety. Next up is Hand in Hand. Again, this is one of my favorite songs. This is probably my favorite instrumental. Phil used this in his live shows for many a year, and I suppose maybe still uses it when he comes back. It's just, he described it as sort of being a Disney theme, where you hear it and it's sort of like all the animals in the forest waking up and shaking the dew off their limbs and their feathers and stuff, and waking up for the day and going down to the village and getting a drink at the stream. And it just does evoke sort of a, I don't know, it's just got this great positive feeling. And I like the way he did it live too. He has the backup singers doing his sort of scat singing. And it's just it's a great feeling. It's sort of primal, it's sort of that just getting up and getting ready to face the day. And you have like a children's choir in the background, sort of, boosting that idea. It just works very well. And again, one of my favorite songs. Again, probably my favorite instrumental of Phil's solo catalog. Next up, this was a minor hit also on the album. I Missed Again, one of my favorites as well. I like that song. Again, Phil was sort of just stretching his muscles here. He was starting to write hit songs. This, of course, was like a minor hit, and it's got sort of that that jivey feeling of some of his early solo hits. And the video, of course, came out, was very sparse, where he's basically sitting there pretending to play instruments, and they made them on the cheap in those days until eventually they started putting a lot of money behind them with obviously Michael Jackson's Thriller and Duran Duran with Hungry Like the Wolf. They started making them into mini movies. But at the beginning, in the infancy of the music video genre, it was basically just sitting in a room and playing to the camera. And that was kind of what I remember mostly about that song. Again, most of these songs, particularly now, are in side B. These are sort of his divorce songs. These are the songs that sort of got him through his divorce to his first wife. And this is kind of the place where these were the collections of songs he was putting together while he was by himself. Because, as legend has it, he started doing the solo album at the point where he was about to leave Genesis because he was trying to salvage his marriage. And he told the guys, look, I can't be a part of the writing. I can't be a part of the tour because I got to salvage my marriage. And the guys, Tony and Mike, said, well, we're thinking of doing solo albums. So we'll do our solo albums while you sort yourself out. So he goes out and tries to, rekindle things with a little woman. It doesn't work, but now he has nothing else to do because Mike and Tony are working on their solo albums, which were, I can remember correctly, Small Creeps Day and A Curious Feeling, respectively. So Phil sits back and says, well, what am I going to do now? And he starts composing what would be these really heartfelt songs about, divorce, and some of them more upbeat than others, like I Missed Again, which was sort of a sort of like a jaunty, oh well. And some of them are a lot more heartfelt, like this next one, You Know What I Mean. Which again, it's a very short song, and it's a very emotionally wrought song. Again, I kind of feel like if I'm in the right frame of mind to hear it, I might skip it if I'm just doing, a listen through. He gave the song to Anna Frida from ABBA after her divorce as well, from Benny, and on her album that he produced, I Know Something's Going On. That was a hit for her as well. He gave the song to her. And I think she had sort of a minor hit with it. She had some success with it because she was going through a divorce at the time as well, after the breakup of ABBA. So again, it's a nice song, a meaningful song. Let's see, Thunder and Lightning, another up-tempo song, very good. I usually will listen to this one. It feels like Phil trying to write a hit song. And again, he does it very well, but you can see where he's starting to, stretch his muscles and get that hit writing groove going. And Thunder and Lightning, again, this is, just a great sort of R&B flavored hit. It's just great. I'm Not Moving. This is a favorite of mine on this album. I like this one a lot. He kind of is doing a very interesting sound. I'm not sure really what he's trying to do with this song, but it's a very interesting song. It's like part David Cassidy, part Elton John, part I don't know, but it works so well. And it's sort of just a brief. It's in there and it's out and it's fast. I think it's a great song. Again, I'm Not Moving. Great song. If Leaving Me Is Easy, this is probably, again, if we're talking about the best love songs, this is probably one of his best, top 5, no doubt about it. And the live version I don't like as much. It's too sparse. I like the kind of, again, this is sort of a mellow, what I suppose Frank Sinatra used to call song for losers, where basically Phil is just, left devastated and he's trying to pick up the pieces. And, it's just, I think it's the right song for any heartbreak. It really is just going to hit that spot right there. So again, one of my favorite love songs from Phil. And we close out the album with Tomorrow Never Knows. a sort of lesser known Beatles track. But again, I love this song. I love the way he does it as well. Very trippy sounding, and he employs some reverse engineering the sound at the end of the song, which it just sounds like strange, unearthly moans. That's basically I think he said it was hand in hand played backwards. So the it gets played backwards and it sounds like some weird spectral moan. Very interesting. And of course, he ends it with a few bars of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is, I don't know, it comes out of nowhere. It's kind of strange, but I think Phil said he did that as sort of a testament of he had his dream come true. You know, he got over the rainbow and he made his own solo album. And of course, it went on to become a huge success. So again, you can't go wrong with this album. I think you should temper your expectations once again. If, like when I was a kid and I went straight for face value, no, I would say go to the hits first. Go to one of the bigger charting albums like But Seriously and Face Value. I mean, But Seriously and No Jacket Required, then Face Value. You might get eased into this kind of, period in Phil's life where he's sort of the emerging songwriter. But again, still a great album. The other ones. And So to F is a live song, which I don't know exactly. I guess that's something that Phil just threw together, an instrumental. I don't really know where that comes from, but it's a live song. That's the only real new track on the Extra Sides album. Also, we get Misunderstanding. Now, a lot of people forget Misunderstanding, which was on Duke, was also written during the Face Value sessions. But Phil put it, and I believe Please Don't Ask, which is also in demo form on the extras. He wrote them both for Face Value, but he brought them to Genesis. He brought the whole album to Genesis and asked Mike and Tony if they wanted to pick a couple songs for Duke. And supposedly he also brought In the Air Tonight, which Phil insists that Tony rejected. And Tony, I think at this point now says, no, if we heard that, we would have picked that one. But I don't think so, because I think, honestly, In the Air Tonight was too sparse. I think there's literally nothing really there for Tony to play. I think he would have gone out of his mind if he had to play In the Air Tonight. And again, Mike would have had minimal interaction on that song. So I can see why they probably passed on In the Air Tonight. But of course, Misunderstanding was written, and the demo is on here at this time, also about the breakup of his marriage. And it was chosen by the guys to be put on Duke, and is, of course, a sort of jaunty up-tempo number. The other song, of course, being Please Don't Ask, which is basically a stark and very moving portrayal of the divorce process. And it's very, very emotional to Phil. You can see when he talks about it. It's very emotional to him. Also a demo for Against All Odds, which, believe it or not, Against All Odds became probably his greatest love song hit. I think that's probably the granddaddy of them all, I always call them. And we'll talk about it briefly because it's not on an album. So Against All Odds, of course, one of his greatest songs. And it was really an afterthought. It was not finished at the time of Face Value. Phil put it on the shelf and really had no use for it. The working title, I think, was Take a Look at Me Now, and he had no other lyrics beyond that. Put it on the shelf, and then when he had made some notoriety and had become probably, semi-famous, not a superstar yet, but that's when it was the song that made him a superstar, actually, when the movie Against All Odds came out and they asked him to provide a song for the soundtrack. And I think the only thing that they obligated him to do was put the words Against All Odds in the song. So Phil took the song off the shelf. He gave it a new coat of paint, and then, just wrote some of the greatest lyrics and just fine-tune the melody and put some of the greatest music to a song, and a match made in heaven, one of the greatest love songs, I think the greatest love song of all time. Take a Look at Me Now, of course, Against All Odds. So again, great stuff that Phil was working on in that era, and it just is unbelievable. So, face value number 3. All right, so let's go back to this. As I was saying, in second place, we have Dance Into the Light. Now, I love this album a lot more than a lot of people, I think. And it could be because I know when it came out, a lot of Phil Collins fans were kind of dismissive of it, but I was still on the heels of Both Sides. This album came out in 95, 96. Both Sides came out in 93, I think, 93, 94. And I was afraid it was going to be more mid-tempo, dark and introspective, talking about social commentary, which is what Phil was trending toward at the time. But surprisingly, it's a very pop, commercial, listen-friendly album. And I feel like it really is the spiritual successor to No Jacket Required, which I guess is not going to be a surprise now where that is on the list. But it sounds like the 90s equivalent of No Jacket Required. We're going to have fun. We're going to dance. Every song on the album is going to be up-tempo music. And it's just, from beginning to end, a joy to listen to. There are a couple songs that maybe are a little less than others, but it's another one, basically all killer, no filler. All right, so let's take a look at the title track, Dance Into the Light. Great song. Again, this is just a great opener. Again, this is sort of Phil having it both ways. He's trying to be fun. He's trying to be commercial. He's trying to be pop, but at the same time, he's kind of delivering a message of, we're all in this together. Let's love one another, be friends and neighbors to each other. It's a great anthem. It's a great message, and it's a great song. It's got great music. Phil he does two things in this album. He embraces the Afrocentric rhythms, which I think a lot of people didn't like because it sounds a lot like Paul Simon's Graceland album. Not that I've ever heard his album, but of course this famous You Can Call Me Al song, where he has a lot of that Caribbean style, sort of African style drumming, which I like. I think it sounded good on this album. It was different. It gave it a little bit of a different flair. Obviously, the artist doesn't want to do the exact same thing every single time. The other thing he did is I think he tapped into a lot of Beatle-esque songwriting, a lot of Beatle-esque flair to some of the songs, particularly in the second half. And I think that was a very strong choice. I think that was a good idea because that, of course, was also something that was very influential to Phil was the Beatles. So I think going to like a different kind of sound of drum and a different kind of approach to songwriting, I think, it worked. It worked for me anyway. It was a little less Motown R&B, a little more Beatle. It was a little less power drums. It was a little more, Latino Afro style drums. And I think it worked. To me, it did. That's What You Said. Again, this is sort of a nice jaunty kind of, there's sort of a traditional place on an album for the second song. The second song is always traditionally a lightweight affair, not necessarily filler, but it's like the best of the filler, I suppose. And it's just strong enough that, it keeps the mood going. It keeps the momentum flowing. And I think that's what this song does well. It's sort of, again, it's it's just a breezy little pop song about, sort of the trying to get a beat on a relationship. It's really good. Number 3, Lorenzo. This is an interesting song. This was actually written by let me see if I can get through this properly. The movie Lorenzo's Oil with Susan Sarandon was written about a true life story about a child named Lorenzo who had I think a muscular disease or something of that nature. he wrote a song about his life and gave it to Phil, and Phil was a fan of the movie and sought this guy out. He has since passed on, this person, and Phil wrote music to the words, and it's a good song. It's different. It's one of the few songs that somebody else wrote the lyrics for on a Phil Collins solo album. Next, number 4, Just Another Story. Again, this is a good mood song. It's very evocative of mood, and it feels very jazz clubby. It's probably my least favorite on the album, because again, it kind of overstays its welcome a little bit. It clocks in at like 6.5 minutes. And the subject matter, again, is sort of very both sides of the story. It's basically just to look at how people mistreat each other, and it's it's not always as it seems. There's a reason behind how people are mistreated. It's kind of in that flavor, I think, of both sides. But a good sounding song. But if I am going to skip anything on this album, it's probably that one. Lorenzo and Just Another Story, probably the weakest tracks. Love Police is an interesting song. It's about the plight of a guy who's in jail and is wanting to get out, but he's trying to do the right thing and sort of pay his dues, so to speak. But he still wants out of the bad situation. Again, a very interesting topic. Not a song you really hear too much out of. Again, I think there's also some Bob Dylan influences on this album. I think Phil was sort of scratching his head as to, he was trying to come up with some inspiration for other things. I think this feels like a very Bob Dylan-esque song. And of course, he covers Dylan later in the song, so later in the album. So again, I don't think I'm too far afield with that was on his mind. Number 6, Wear My Hat. I think Phil enjoys this song more than I do, but again, it's a good up-tempo song. It's about the fans. Again, it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of pointing, barbs at the fans a little bit about how they're always underfoot and pestering him and so forth. And yeah, it's serviceable. It's a good up-tempo song. I don't know that it's. I mean, basically, I think "Dance Into the Light" kind of does what this song does rhythmically better. So, "It's in Your Eyes," I think, is the most stark Beatle-esque song. It's just a simple love song. It just goes over the way the Beatles would, the feeling of sort of a happy, peppy love song, and then they sort of repeat the chorus, and then it's done. I mean, it's probably nothing special if you look at it that way, but that's what the Beatles made their bread and butter on for the first, 4 or 5 years of their existence. And I think Phil does it as well as anybody. It's a great little love song. And I appreciate it. I listened to that one a lot. I remember there was a video for it, I believe. It didn't make it very high on the charts, I don't suppose. But yeah, it's a good song. Ought to Know by Now. That's another great song. Love that song. Again, very jazz clubby. Phil kind of trying to bring out the blues. Phil trying to bust out the blues every once in a while. I remember Phil saying that I Wish It Would Rain Down was sort of his most bluesy song. But I think this one sort of gives him a run for his money with that statement. I think this is a pretty good sort of blues number. Really fun to hear. Take Me Down, again, another kind of quasi-religious song. Take Me Down by the Water. And, it sort of evokes baptism. Baptism. And, wanting to change your ways and wanting to, kind of make a clean break and start over in life. It's a great song. Again, another up-tempo song that really works. The Same Moon, a very underrated song, very underrated. I was surprised this didn't make it to the Love Songs compilation, because this is, again, one of my favorite love songs. The Same Moon, very simple arrangement, a very simple keyboard, progression on it. It just sounds great. Very, very simple, earnest lyrics. about being under the same moon but still being away from the one you love. It's again, I think probably one of Phil's best love songs and very underrated. Nobody ever talks about this one. I don't think Phil even acknowledges it very much. Number 11, River So Wide. Again, this is sort of his social commentary on the album. This is probably the most outrightly social commentary, where it's about race relations. Again, something that probably is still in vogue today. But again, he has a very stark take on it, which is basically he says, "Don't look back, that won't help us now." And again, that's a very stark admission to, things might not be great, they might not be going great right now, but they're much better than they were years ago. And if you keep looking back, you're never going to progress to the other side. And again, it's great lyrics. It's a great up tempo number. Again, it's overlooked in the catalog, I think. Number 12, No Matter Who. Again, this is sort of Phil's closest attempt at a country song. To me, this sounds very country and western. Again, it works for me. It's a very, there's like a twangy guitar, and he's not sounding southern or western really, but just hold my hand. It's sort of like I can see it being done, with a little bit of a tweak or two by a country band, and I think it would probably be a huge hit. I'm surprised if it hasn't been covered that it isn't going to be, because it really would make a great country song. And again, very, par for the course for this album. Very earnest, love song lyrics, and sort of like a burgeoning love song for a burgeoning relationship. Great stuff. And of course, they close out the album, Phil does, with The Times They Are a Changin'. And again, this is coming off of Both Sides, the album. So this is where Phil, I think, legitimately learned the bagpipe so he could play this song. He plays bagpipe with the song, and it does very well. The legitimate bagpipes, he doesn't synthesize it. And I think it's a little more upbeat than Both Sides. The contemporary of Both Sides would be where Sons of Our Fathers, where Phil is bemoaning how you can't see anything positive in the next generation because, I sound to my kids the way my father sounded to me, and it's never going to change. And this is sort of the sad concession to that, by saying the times they are a changing. You're not going to be able to. You can't control your kids. They're going to do what they're going to do. In a way, it's kind of a defeated. It's kind of a defeated coda to that last album's song, but it sounds much more upbeat, and it sounds much more positive than We're Sons of Our Fathers. So, again, great album from beginning to end. I love it. Not many songs would I skip, and on the extras, on the B sides here, live versions of all the songs, pretty much the pertinent songs. There's a couple of B sides. Another Time, kind of unmemorable. I don't really even remember it. It's Over. I remember that. That's a long, dull, plodding song. No. That never made it. I Don't Want to Go. Again, kind of unmemorable. I think maybe that might have been the best of the three. But again, not too many really great, bonus tracks here for this album. So I think what they've got on the album is probably the strongest material. So again, I would say if you haven't heard, largely positive things about this album, I think you're missing out. I think you should check this one out. Phil breaking with tradition here for this album by showing himself dancing instead of just the profile or the close-up, which is what he always did in the album covers. So, like I said, give it a shot. Again, for me, it's one of my favorites. I have great memories of listening to it again and again and again and again and again. And of course, this was sort of the bridge between, after this came the Tarzan and Brother Bear soundtracks, which we probably should talk about too, but I kind of feel like we've got enough to cover here. And the final album, which was Testify, truly a high point. All right, so we get to our final album in the Phil Collins ranking, and of course, this is the pièce de résistance. This is my all-time favorite. One of the greatest albums, if not the greatest album of all time, ever made in the history of mankind. No Jacket Required. Phil Collins' greatest album. I don't care what anybody says. This album is, again, it's a killer. There is a song that I pass. I think you're going to probably be able to guess which one. But again, this is just, I put this song on. I put this album on. Every song is a party. It's a party in every song. And just from beginning to end, it's a treasure, it's a joy, it's a treat. First track, opening song, Susudio. Again, Phil's one of his many signature hits. Again, a great song, just a great party song. You got that great bass line. You've got the horn section doing the greatest horn section sounds that I've ever heard anywhere. You've got, just that great keyboard synthesized sound of the 80s that was just so 80s sounding. Oh man, I love it. The video, of course, Phil, just I remember it as a kid just seeing him, I didn't even know what Phil Collins did and whatever, and it was just like so much fun just watching him doing the song in the video, because it's just like a party, a celebration. That's what the whole video, the gimmick of it is. It's like everybody's bored, they're not having a good time, they're at the club or whatever, and he just starts singing the song, and everybody's on their feet, everybody's jiving. It's just a great song. And again, I think everybody knows the song, but it's still woefully underrated. I think nobody really appreciates what Phil brought, particularly to the 80s, I suppose, with this sound, because, it's just such a great 80s staple. But what I mean is, yet you never hear it really in any 80s films, or I don't think when they're doing these like throwbacks to the 80s or anything, you don't hear Susudio, and you really should. It's I think one of the greatest 80s songs of all time. Only You Know and I Know. Again, this is the sort of second song filler. It's not really filler, because it's really a strong song, but then again, it's kind of overlooked because it's the second song. It continues the mood. Very, very strong song. Again, it's kind of a song about the sort of breakdown of a relationship on its way out. Number 3, Long, Long Way to Go. Again, this is the song that I usually will skip. This is another one that's like an atmospheric song. Very, again, social commentary heavy. I think this was sort of Phil's first step in the pond with that kind of social commentary. It's kind of, it's not very cheerful when you have lyrics like, somebody's laying in a gutter somewhere right now while I'm singing this song. Somewhere out there, someone's heart stopped beating. You know what I mean? It's not really a toe tapper. So I kind of skipped this one. So I can't say that every song is a strong one, but again, it's sort of Phil dipping his toe in the water of sort of the more serious stuff that we'd hear in But Seriously a few years on. I Don't Want to Know, great song. It's a great guitar rocker for the 80s anyway. It's like, it's like that typical 80s rock pop that Phil was so good at doing. And it's like, for the first time, it's nice to hear Phil kind of unchained. All his songs are usually a love song where something's going wrong, or maybe something's going right. But this is a case where he kind of wants out, and he is not going to put up with some woman's crap any longer. And so it's a great anthem, so to speak, of, the liberated guy that's not going to put up with the old ball and chain anymore, the old albatross around the neck. It's kind of, it's very freeing to feel that. Next up, One More Night, one of my all-time favorites. One More Night, with that great saxophone solo at the end. Of course, as I mentioned before, the great Don Myrick, the late great Don Myrick, who tragically lost his life in a drug bust gone wrong. But to me, it evokes feelings. Of my comic Bullets Bourbon, I kind of have that as the unofficial closing theme of every story, because the story always ends with him walking down the street the same way Phil did to One More Night in the video. And again, it's just a great sounding song, very, very, moody, atmospheric kind of, again, another kind of Love on the Rocks type treatment there, where it's Phil's kind of been played and he's kind of holding out hope, but it don't look good. But again, it's a great song, just one of my all-time favorites. Probably one of my first favorites was this next song, Don't Lose My Number. I heard this song on the radio, and I think probably between that and Invisible Touch, if I don't spoil the Genesis album A to Z ranking, I think Don't Lose My Number was probably one of my first songs I heard from Phil that I totally loved. And it was just, I heard it on the radio and I said, I've got to hear more from this guy. This is a great song. It's a great, again, with that Daryl Stuermer guitar riff, high energy. It feels like an action adventure movie in a song all onto itself. It's just all these things. And you can kind of see how you could use this as well in 80s movies or something like that. I don't think it's ever been used. And the video, of course, is quite funny. It kind of sends up all the videos of that day at that point. I think it was like Sting in the cars and so on and so forth. But you could see how you could use this, like he uses in a Western setting, in a samurai setting, and Mad Max. It's just a great high octane song, that's just a lot of energy and, kind of tells a ambiguous story, kind of mysterious about what's going on with this guy. Why is everybody after him? What did he do? He didn't mean to do it. He didn't mean to do anything wrong, but they're after him. And how's he going to get out of it? It's only going to get worse. It's just like it captured the imagination along with the, the great instrumentation of it. Next up, Who Said I Would? This was a great song live, but the recorded version is equally fun. Again, what can I say? It's just a great sounding song. It's got that 80s feel all over it. It's just like party in a box, you know what I mean? They just turn on this song, and again, a lot of energy. Who Said I Would? Again, a great... It's kind of like the precursor to One More Night, I guess, right? It's like it kind of has the same themes. It's basically, Phil trying to hold on tentatively to a relationship where, it just ain't going to work. All right, so that's a great song. Next up, Doesn't Anybody Stay Together Anymore? This was a song that I think he collaborated on with Daryl Stuermer, the guitar player in his band. Also, another notable song was Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. I don't think I mentioned that when we were doing But Seriously, but they collaborated on that one as well. This one a little less memorable. He tried to tweak it and slow it down live, I remember, and it sounded... the results were not as good as the album version. Again, high energy, a lot of great drum work here by Phil in this album, in this song. The drum work, I think, particularly, because, like I said, coming off of Hello, I Must Be Going, you could tell Phil was trying to do some, keen drum work in at least one song. I would say this is his drum song on this album, the way I Don't Care Anymore was on Hello, and the way In the Air Tonight was in Face Value. But again, I might skip this one once in a while. It's probably not as strong as some of the others, but it depends on the mood. Inside Out, a great song. I've got to say, though, I think the live version is better. And thankfully, the live version is included on the extra jacket material, where you really hear the interplay of Chester Thompson, great drummer, drumming at the end. The instrumental solo at the end. Daryl Stuermer just burning it up on the guitar. Again, the recorded version is great, but I think you have to listen to the live version if you haven't, because the way it ends just totally brings the house down. And of course, the album traditionally ends with Take Me Home, which Phil ended his concerts with routinely, usually. But again, this is a great song. This is again, it's kind of a darker song than the sort of peppy type music implies. It's about people who are left in jails and mental hospitals and prisons, and they're kind of forgotten about, and they're never given justice. They're never really brought out when there's really no reason for them to be in. You know, not everybody in prison belongs there. Not everybody in a mental institution belongs there, at least for as long as they are in there. And so the idea is Take Me Home. I know when I first heard it, I remember I mistakenly thought it was about POWs because, of course, I think at the 80s at that time, it was, you know, it was fashionable to always, you know, they were always doing movies about Rambo's getting the POWs out and Chuck Norris is getting the POWs out. And it's like, I thought this was just like Take Me Home was about POWs. That's kind of funny. But again, I just love that. Just like Don't Lose My Number. There's some interesting instrumentation here. There's sort of that xylophone-ish sound, you know, and this was at the point too where they did those electric drums. And I always loved the sound of an electric drum, and it was a very brief you know, it was used very briefly in 80s music. But when they did, it was great sounding. And I think there was a period from like 82 to like 87, maybe something like that, where you had that electric drum sound. And I think you hear that a lot here in Take Me Home. Great song. And again, the video was cool when they had Phil doing, I think he filmed it when he was on tour during different stops. He would like do a verse and he would be in front of like, the Eiffel Tower, and he was in Japan, he was in China, he was in Chicago, he was in New York. They would film these little bits and string it together and make the video. Great song. And of course, the final song was added to the CD, because I remember when I had the cassette as a kid, they never had this one. But We Said Hello, Goodbye, which has in shades of sort of like Every Day, there's from both sides, there's a piano solo at the beginning that's about a minute long, kind of unusual. I don't know why it was not on the original album. This is something I've always wondered, but I suppose because there was more room on a CD, it was possible to fit it on. And it's a good song. It's you know, it's about when you move. It's home is wherever you are. And so leaving somewhere is not always something to be sad about. You're going somewhere else where the adventure will just begin for you. And so in a sense, it's a very positive song, a very positive sounding song. And like I said, it's a late addition to me. You know, as a kid growing up, I never had that one, but it's a good song as well. So again, this is the ultimate in Phil Collins music, if you ask me. The No Jacket Required album is must hear. It's must listen to. And it is my all-time favorite. So, again, these, I think, apart from No Jacket Required being the first, and Both Sides being the last, and arguably going back being the next to last, these could jump around in any shape or form. I only did them in a ranking style so that I would have an excuse to do all the albums. But I mean, really, I could have done them in any order, and it would have been fine. But again, this adds a bit of competition. I'm sure there are a lot of different views out there on what order I should put them in. Let me know in the comments below what your ranking is on the Phil Collins solo catalog. Again, check out the video I did reviewing the Phil Collins One Hot Night tour Blu-ray in Montreux, I believe. And hopefully we'll do some more videos about music. I love music, and I love Phil Collins music. So we're going to do the Genesis Phil Collins era ranking pretty soon. We're going to get to that. Thank you for checking out the channel if you haven't already. If this is new to you, we talk about all kinds of stuff. We do pop culture mostly. And of course, you want to check out the link in the description below for Bullets Bourbon, my comics. The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. You can find me on Twitter and Gab as well. And happy 70th birthday, Phil Collins. And so until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.